Number 7. Keyshawn Newell. In 2016, a gang member's mother reported him to the police after hearing him brag about murdering a teenager who'd previously assisted him in a bank robbery. 19-year-old Keyshawn Newell and Jeffrey Doss, age 22, had robbed a Citizens Bank in Northfield Village, Ohio, on August the 15th. The men, both reported members of the Black Disciples street gang, had recruited 17-year-old Brianna Fluitt to help them. However, within a few days, surveillance photos of her robbing the bank were made public. Newell and Doss became concerned that she would turn on them upon being questioned by the police. 4 days after the robbery, Newell picked Fluitt up from her home in a stolen SUV alongside 3 other teenagers. He told them to switch seats with him so that he could make out with her. They drove to East Cleveland, where Newell executed Fluitt. He shot her 2 times in the SUV and 3 more times as she lay dying on the ground outside of the vehicle. Newell's mother contacted the police after he'd bragged about the killing. The teenagers provided the authorities with evidence against him in exchange for their charges to be kept in the juvenile court. He was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 49 years. Number 6. Katie Price. In 2019, British celebrity Katie Price faced a considerable degree of public backlash and was accused of making light of drunk driving. The former model's pink Range Rover had crashed on October the 10th of the previous year. Price was found in the back seat and, upon being questioned by the police, claimed that one of her friends had been driving the vehicle, after which they'd fled the scene. She didn't, however, provide the authorities with the name of said friend, which led to speculation about her story being a fabrication. Price was reportedly nearly twice the legal limit as the Range Rover crashed into a hedge in a parked vehicle in London. No one was hurt, but the incident was just one of many legal issues involving Price's driving in the past, some of which included speeding, running a red light, and driving while on her cell phone. For the latest incident, she wasn't found to be a credible witness and was ultimately given a 3-month driving ban on the lesser charge of being drunk while in charge of a motor vehicle. She celebrated her conviction outside the courthouse, claiming, "Brilliant, I thought I was going to get 2 years." Price was seen pumping her fist in the air and boasted that she was going to go car shopping. The public viscerally reacted to her attitude. One woman, whose teenage daughter had been killed in a drunk driving incident, called it disgusting and a way of trivializing a serious issue. Price was also accused of setting a bad example and of getting off with a lighter sentence simply because of her celebrity status. Number 5. Blake Fisher. In October of 2018, an Idaho Fish and Game Commissioner resigned from his position amidst controversy regarding his recent hunting trip to Namibia. In mid-September, he'd sent an email with photos bragging about his expedition to over 100 colleagues and friends. The images showed Fisher and his wife standing next to the bodies of various kills, which included a leopard, an oryx, a giraffe, a water buck, and perhaps most worrisome, an entire baboon family. Fisher boasted that he'd killed the latter as a way of introducing his wife to hunting in Africa, claiming that she got the idea quick. Many of his colleagues found the images and the callous tone of the email unsettling. Former commissioners of the Idaho Department of Fish and Game spoke out against what they believed to be a lurid perspective on hunting and an attitude that tarnished the department's reputation. They called for Fisher to resign, which he did, but told a Boise newspaper that he didn't feel he'd done anything unethical and immoral. Number 4. Arta Tahma. While intoxicated, Arta Tahma crashed his Mercedes S600 into another vehicle and killed its occupant, only seconds after boasting to a passenger about his drunk driving skills. In October of 2018, Tahma was speeding down Mort Lane in Tilsley, Manchester. He was doing over 70 miles per hour in a 30 mile per hour area when he collided with a Volkswagen Golf. 71-year-old Kathleen Brogan was a front seat passenger, while her daughter Jill was behind the wheel. The Golf spun 180 degrees and was hurled tens of feet back up the road. Brogan was killed while Jill was rushed to the hospital with fractures to both legs and to her pelvis. 39-year-old Tahma suffered internal injuries, as did his passenger Zygmunt Putek. The audio from dashcam footage revealed a conversation between the two men. Putek had repeatedly asked Tahma to slow down, claiming that he had children, to which the latter replied, "I'm a better driver when I've had a drink." Moments later, he crashed into the Volkswagen. Earlier that day, Tahma had downed a third of a whiskey bottle and was double the legal alcohol limit. He pled guilty to causing death and serious injury by dangerous driving, for which he was sentenced to 88 months in prison and banned from driving for 9 years and 10 months. Number 3. Murder of Daniel Halsey. On April the 9th of 2021, the body of 45-year-old Daniel Halsey was found burnt from head to toe in the garage of his Las Vegas home. Prior to being stuffed into a sleeping bag and set ablaze, he'd been stabbed and cut at least 70 times. There were also wounds on his body to suggest attempted dismemberment. The police was only hours into the investigation when they were approached by the parents of 18-year-old Aaron Guerrero. They were concerned that he'd run away with Halsey's daughter, Sierra, also in her late teens. She and Guerrero had been dating between June and December of 2020, but their parents then kept them apart after finding out about their plan to run away to Los Angeles together. As the investigation progressed, it was revealed that Sierra had used her father's debit cards. Surveillance cameras from local stores had captured her and Guerrero buying disposable gloves, a circular saw, and saw blades, bleach, and lighter fluid. Many of the items were found at the crime scene, along with a handsaw and 2 folding knives. It's believed that Sierra and Guerrero murdered Halsey and then tried burning the body in parts of the house to cover their tracks. The two had fled to Salt Lake City, where they were arrested on April the 13th. In the aftermath, the authorities found a disturbing video on YouTube of Sierra and Guerrero apparently bragging about the murder. The couple appeared to be inside a tent as Guerrero boasted to the camera, "Welcome back to our YouTube channel, day 3 after murdering somebody," as they each held 3 fingers up. Sierra then told Guerrero not to say that on camera before he cradled her head and claimed that it had been worth it. Their trial is ongoing, but some reports claimed that prosecutors pondered pursuing the death penalty for Guerrero. The teens both pled not guilty. Today's topic was requested by Wish Good Girl. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Twain Gotti. In July of 2013, a rapper was charged with double homicide after boasting in his lyrics about slaying a rival gang member. The case had gone cold for the 2007 murders of 16-year-old Christopher Horton and Brian Dean, aged 20, who'd been gunned down on the porch of a Virginia home. Then, in 2011, a break came after a detective newly assigned to the case was tipped off about a YouTube song called Ride Out, performed by 22-year-old local rapper and Twain Stewart, also known as Twain Gotti. He was reportedly becoming prominent on the music scene, having released several mixtapes, performing in East Coast shows, and signing with a New York-based management firm. In the song that allegedly referenced Horton's killing, he bragged how everyone had seen when he choked him on the porch, but he goes on to imply there were no witnesses when he smoked him and 357 Smith & Wesson scoped him. Roughly 1 year after the charges, Stewart was acquitted of the double murder, but instead got 16 years for additional charges stemming from the shooting. They were 2 use of a firearm counts and 1 for shooting into an occupied dwelling. Stewart stated an intention of appealing the sentence. His conviction refueled conversations about First Amendment rights and if rap lyrics, on which most of the case against Stewart had been built, are entirely protected by freedom of speech, or if they may be used as evidence. Number 1. Jorge Avia Torres. On July the 12th of 2009, a welfare check was performed at the Joint Base Maya Henderson Hall in Arlington, Virginia, after Navy Petty Officer 2nd Class Amanda Snell failed to turn up for her shift. The door was unlocked while her purse and ID were still in the room. Snell's decomposing body was found inside a closet, and it was ultimately determined that the 20-year-old had been killed through some form of strangulation. DNA samples were taken from the scene, and because of how tightly monitored the base was, the killer was suspected to have been stationed there. For months, none of the leads had panned out until February of 2010, following the kidnapping of 3 women in Arlington. Their aggressor had taken them at gunpoint and bound them with electrical cords in their Ballston apartment. He then took one of the victims to a secluded area in his SUV, repeatedly choked and abused her before leaving her for dead next to a highway. She survived. as did the others, and they were able to provide the authorities with a description of the vehicle and their aggressor. The information consequently led them to Jorge Avia Torres. He was a Marine who lived at the base just 2 doors down from Snell. A search of his vehicle tied him to the February attack, while his DNA was found to match samples recovered from that crime scene, as well as from the bed sheets in Snell's room. Following Torres' arrest, his cellmate, Osama El Atari, approached the authorities claiming that he'd been bragging about killing Snell. El Atari was serving time for defrauding several banks of an estimated $53 million and agreed to wear a wire in exchange for a lesser sentence. It would subsequently provide investigators with a chilling record of Torres describing how he'd tied Snell up with a cable from her laptop and choked her to death. The DNA evidence, coupled with the jailhouse confession, was enough to secure a conviction, but the series of gruesome revelations was far from over. After running his DNA through a database, Torres was connected to a horrific 2005 double homicide in his hometown of Zion, Illinois, when he was still in his late teens. The victims had been abused, killed, and their eyeballs had been cut out of their sockets. It's believed that he joined the Marines to lower suspicions. He was sentenced to death for Snell's murder as well as the double homicide, and is currently awaiting execution at USP Terre Haute. Thanks for watching. What would be the first thing you'd do if you won $100 million in the lottery? Let us know in the comments section below.